She did it with him right at home. A story that will take your breath away. 18 plus. Jessica, sitting on her favorite soft sofa, sipped chilled white wine while watching the flickering candlelight cast golden reflections on the walls of her living room. She always loved these quiet evenings, especially when Alex worked late. The silence that usually enveloped their home felt like a warm blanket she could wrap herself in, escaping the monotony of daily life. But that evening, something was different. An unknown feeling of unease, growing with each passing minute, wouldn't let her fully relax. After another sip of wine, her thoughts turned back to Alex. Lately, he had become somewhat distant. She didn't know if it was because of work or something more. Although they spent time together, it felt as if an invisible wall had grown between them, one she couldn't break through. Jessica glanced at the clock. 9:13 p.m. Alex was supposed to be home 2 hours ago. A sudden knock at the door made her jump. Who could it be at this late hour? She stood, carefully walked to the door. Holding her breath, peered through the peephole. Her eyes widened when she saw Liam, the young, charismatic neighbor with whom she had only exchanged brief hellos. Something in his expression made her heart beat faster. She opened the door, trying to appear calm. "Hi, Jessica. Sorry to bother you so late. I found a letter in my mailbox addressed to you," he said, handing her an envelope. His voice was low and steady, but there was something in it that sent a slight shiver down her spine. She took the envelope, their fingers barely brushing. Jessica quickly pulled her hand back, as if afraid someone might witness the innocent touch. "Oh, thank you, Liam. That was very kind of you," she said, trying to hide her slight embarrassment. "No problem. Hope I didn't disturb you." His gaze was soft but penetrating. "No, you didn't. Would you like to come in?" The words slipped out suddenly, almost instinctively. Liam hesitated for a moment, then nodded. They sat in the living room, and Jessica couldn't help but notice how Liam looked in the dim candlelight. His eyes seemed even brighter, and his confident posture made her feel slightly vulnerable. The conversation started casually, about mail, the neighborhood, work. But with each passing moment, it grew deeper. Liam was an engaging conversationalist, and Jessica felt her anxiety slowly transform into a strange curiosity. "Are you always home alone when Alex is out?" he asked suddenly, his voice calm but tinged with interest. "Well, yes. His work keeps him busy," she replied, nervously tracing the rim of her glass with a finger. "That's a shame," he said, leaning in slightly. "A woman like you deserves more." Jessica felt her heart beat faster. She wanted to respond, but at that moment, her phone vibrated on the table. She glanced at the screen. Alex, her husband's name glowed on the display. "Excuse me," she said, picking up the phone. "Of course," Liam replied, though his eyes watched her intently. Jessica answered the call. "Hi, darling." "Jessica, I'm coming home early. I'll be there in 15 minutes. His voice sounded tired but resolute. She glanced at Liam, who sat calmly on the sofa, but his eyes held a subtle hint of interest. Jessica ended the call, but her thoughts were already swirling. What would she say to Liam? What would she tell Alex if he found out about this unexpected visitor? Her eyes fell on the envelope still sitting on the table, and suddenly she realized she hadn't opened it. Jessica set the phone down and turned her gaze to Liam. His calm yet curious eyes seemed to read her every move. The envelope, a plain white one with no markings to hint at its contents, lay on the table in front of her. The tension in the air grew thicker. "Is that your letter?" Liam asked, watching as she carefully picked it up. "Yes, thank you for bringing it." "Probably something official," she replied, trying to maintain her composure, though a faint unease crept into her voice. She cautiously tore the edge of the envelope and pulled out the letter. Her eyes quickly scanned the lines, but what she read made her heart tighten. It was an anonymous letter, typed on a typewriter, with no signature or clues to its author. "Sarah, Alex is lying to you. Look closely at his schedule and ask where he spends his evenings. You deserve to know the truth." Jessica froze, her fingers gripping the letter tightly. Her first reaction was denial. Alex? Lying? That couldn't be. But deep down, a voice whispered that it might be true. "What is it?" Liam's voice broke through her thoughts. Nothing important, just some nonsense, she replied, sliding the letter back into the envelope and trying to appear calm. Liam raised an eyebrow but didn't press further. Instead, he gave her a faint smile. Jessica, you don't look very convincing, but if you don't want to talk, I won't push. She took a deep breath, feeling her nerves fray. But then another thought struck her. Alex was coming home in a few minutes. She had to decide what to do next. Liam, you'd better go. Alex will be home any minute, she said softly but firmly. Of course. I don't want to cause any trouble. But if you ever need support or just want to talk, you know where to find me, he said, standing up from the sofa. He left, leaving her alone with her thoughts. Jessica sat motionless, staring at the envelope. Her mind was chaotic, and she didn't know where to start. Only one thing was clear. This letter had called everything she knew about her husband into question. When the door opened, Alex walked in. His face looked normal, calm, but now every gesture seemed suspicious to her. Hi, love. How are you? He asked, leaning in for a kiss. She automatically responded to his gesture, but her mind was elsewhere. Fine, she replied briefly, trying to hide her unease. Alex walked to the kitchen to pour himself some water. Jessica sat in silence, her thoughts battling one another. She needed answers, but didn't know how to ask without raising suspicion. When Alex went to take a shower, Jessica picked up his phone lying on the table. She stared at the screen, her heart pounding with anxiety. One swipe, and she might uncover the truth. But at that moment, the phone vibrated, and a new message lit up the screen. Thank you for tonight. It was unforgettable. M. Jessica sat motionless, her heart racing with anxiety. The phone in her hands felt unbearably heavy. The message on the screen, simple yet full of intrigue, forced her to question everything she thought she knew about her husband. Thank you for tonight. It was unforgettable. M. Who was M? What was this unforgettable evening? Jessica had every reason to suspect the worst, but decided to proceed cautiously. Her fingers quickly flew over the keyboard. It was amazing, M. I hope next time will be even better. What exactly did you mean by unforgettable? She hit send and froze, her heart pounding in rhythm with the phone's vibrations. She understood the risk but knew it was the only way to uncover the truth. Minutes later, the phone vibrated in her hands. A reply from M. I still can't believe how well you keep everything a secret. The feelings you give me are unforgettable. Your touch, it leaves a mark. Jessica felt the blood rush to her face. The words were so explicit that they left no room for doubt. She felt anger, betrayal, and pain all at once. But instead of giving in to despair, she decided to play along. You know I love keeping things discreet. Where should we meet next time? Her fingers barely managed to hit send before the sound of the shower shutting off pulled her back to reality. Alex was coming. Jessica quickly placed the phone back on the table and composed herself. Alex appeared in the living room, drying his hair with a towel. His relaxed demeanor only raised more questions in Jessica's mind. How could he act so calm if he was hiding something so important? You look tense. Is everything okay? Alex asked, sitting down beside her. Yeah, everything's fine. Just a little tired, she replied with a forced smile. He leaned in to kiss her cheek, but she subtly pulled away, pretending to reach for her wine glass. His eyes briefly showed confusion, but he said nothing. The phone vibrated again. Jessica resisted the urge to grab it. You've got a message, she said, trying to sound casual, though her heart raced. Alex glanced at the phone but didn't pick it up. Probably work. Nothing important, he said, reaching for the TV remote. Jessica felt a wave of frustration. How could he so easily hide the truth? Later, after Alex had fallen asleep, Jessica quietly slipped out of bed, taking the phone with her. A new message from M awaited her. I'd love to meet you at the same place as last time. Tomorrow evening? I'll make sure you feel the magic again. Her hands gripped the phone so tightly her fingers ached. Jessica had to find out who this woman was and where they met. Jessica decided to message M to arrange a meeting, pretending to be Alex. She was bold in her plan. She would confront this woman herself. But was she ready for what she might discover? Jessica sat in the kitchen, staring at the phone screen. Her anger and frustration had morphed into a sharp desire to uncover the truth. The message from M still burned in her mind. "I'll do everything to make you feel that magic again." These words left no room for doubt, yet they also stoked her curiosity. She knew she needed to tread carefully if she wanted to get to the bottom of things. Ideas swirled in her head, one of which was particularly risky: reaching out to Liam. The thought seemed crazy, but Liam had always been attentive to her. His behavior the previous evening suggested he was willing to be there for her, even if it meant crossing the fine line between friendship and something more. Can I really trust him? She wondered. The phone vibrated again in her hand. Another message from M. "I can't wait for tomorrow. Be careful no one finds out." That was the final straw. Jessica decided to message Liam. "Hi, I have a strange situation. Can I ask for your help? It's really important." A few minutes later, Liam replied, "Of course. I can come over if you don't mind." Jessica agreed, and 20 minutes later, Liam was in her living room. Dressed in casual athletic wear, he looked relaxed, but the sharpness in his eyes showed he was taking her words seriously. "What happened, Jessica? You look worried," he asked, sitting down next to her. Unable to find the right words, she simply handed him the phone. Liam read the messages carefully, raising an eyebrow. "This sounds serious. Are you sure you want to dig into this?" "I need to know the truth," she said firmly, "but I can't do it alone." Liam was silent for a few moments, weighing his thoughts. Then he nodded. "All right, I'll help. But what do you want to do?" "I want to go to that meeting, but not alone." Liam looked at her in surprise but didn't argue. "Okay, we'll do this together." The next evening, they were both ready. Jessica wore an elegant dress that highlighted her grace without drawing too much attention. Liam, in a classic shirt and dark jeans, looked casual yet striking. They arrived at the designated spot, a small bar in the city center. The atmosphere was dim, with soft lighting that added an air of mystery. Liam stayed back at a safe distance, allowing Jessica to take the lead. She entered and glanced around. Among the guests, she spotted a woman with long chestnut hair sitting at a corner table. Their eyes met, and the stranger smiled faintly. Jessica approached the table, trying to project confidence. "Hi, were you expecting someone?" she asked, sitting down. The woman raised an eyebrow in surprise, but didn't look alarmed. "Yes and no. And who are you?" Jessica leaned in slightly, her voice low and steady. "I'm Alex's wife." The stranger froze, but only for a moment. Then she smirked faintly. "So, you've decided to play his game? How intriguing." Jessica felt the tension in the air sharpen. Before she could respond, a man approached the table. He wasn't Liam, nor was he Alex. The stranger leaned down toward the woman and whispered, "Does she know?" Jessica felt the atmosphere in the bar shift. The stranger who had approached the table leaned closer to the woman, but his eyes remained fixed on Jessica. He looked dangerous. His sharp features and cold stare made her nervously clench her hands under the table. "Does she know?" he asked in a low voice, not breaking eye contact with Jessica. The woman calmly reached for her glass, took a careful sip, and replied as if there was no tension at all. "More than you think." Jessica lost her patience. "Excuse me, but who even are you? And what exactly am I supposed to know?" The woman smiled, though her smile resembled more of a predatory grin. "Jessica, it's interesting. You only know half the truth. But maybe you should find out the whole picture," she said, tracing her finger along the rim of her glass. "Your husband isn't the only one with secrets." The stranger, whom she introduced as Nick, leaned in closer and spoke calmly. "You'd better think about how far you're willing to go. Your husband is only the beginning." These words stirred a mix of emotions in Jessica: anger, fear, and even more questions. "Speak plainly. What does that mean?" she snapped. The woman, whom Jessica was beginning to hate, smiled again. "Oh, you're so naive. Do you think Alex is the only reason you're here? Look at your friend." Jessica sharply turned her head, and her heart froze. Standing in the bar's entrance was Liam. His gaze met hers, and there was something in it she hadn't noticed before: a cold confidence. "Liam? What are you doing here?" she asked, trying to conceal her surprise. He approached the table, his movements confident and even a bit defiant. "I'm here to make sure you're all right," he replied, his voice soft but with a subtle edge. The woman laughed, her laughter cold and unnerving. "Oh, how sweet. Liam, playing the hero again?" "As always," she said, standing up. "Jessica, you have no idea what you've gotten yourself into." Jessica looked at them both, feeling as if her world was beginning to crumble. "Can someone explain to me what's going on?" Liam turned his gaze to the woman and Nick, his voice growing stern. "Kate, keep quiet." Kate. Now the woman had a name, but it only heightened the tension. "Oh, are you afraid she'll find out?" Kate mocked. "Why don't you tell her, Liam, how you're connected to Alex?" Jessica felt her heart tighten. "Liam, what does she mean?" He looked at her, and for a moment, guilt flashed in his eyes. "Jessica, I was trying to protect you. But Alex, he's not who you think he is. And you too?" Jessica's voice trembled, but she didn't look away. Kate intervened, her voice dripping with mockery. "Oh, this just gets better. Jessica, do you know that Liam used to work with your husband? They're both part of the same game, and you're nothing more than an unwitting spectator." Jessica felt her heart tearing between anger and despair. "Is this true, Liam?" Liam sighed deeply and, without answering, turned to Kate. "Enough, Kate. You have no right to drag her into this." "Oh, she's already involved. And honestly, I'm curious to see how far she's willing to go to uncover the truth," Kate said, giving Jessica a challenging look. Nick suddenly pulled out his phone and showed Jessica a picture. It depicted Alex, Liam, and Kate. They stood together, smiling, with what appeared to be a covert office in the background. "Do you want to know what they're hiding?" Nick asked, grinning as if he knew this would destroy her completely. The tension in the bar grew so thick it was almost tangible. Kate smiled as though she held all the cards, while Nick stood poised, alert, ready for whatever might unfold. Liam, who had just joined the group, maintained a confident posture, but his eyes betrayed an internal struggle. The silence was suddenly shattered by the sound of the door opening. Everyone turned their heads. It was Alex. His appearance caught everyone off guard, especially Jessica. He looked irritated, and his gaze immediately locked onto her. "Jessica, what are you doing here?" he asked, stepping closer. His tone was cold, almost commanding, but Jessica refused to let her fear take over. "And you? What are you doing here, Alex?" she snapped, her gaze unwavering. Alex glanced around at the others, his eyes lingering on Kate longer than was appropriate. "What's going on here?" His voice grew harder, more demanding. Kate, reveling in the chaos, raised her glass. "Oh, Alex, you know all secrets eventually come to light. Like this one," she nodded toward Nick, who still held the phone with the damning photograph. Jessica stood, her gaze fixed squarely on her husband. "Who is she to you, Alex? And what is this photo?" Alex froze, his face turning to stone for a moment. He knew there was no escaping an explanation now. "It's not what you think," he began, but Jessica cut him off. "Then tell me what it is, Alex, because from where I'm standing, I have every reason to think the worst." Liam stepped forward, but Alex's sharp glare stopped him in his tracks. "Stay out of this, Liam. This has nothing to do with you," Alex said, his voice quiet but loaded with menace. "Maybe not, but I'm here to help Jessica," Liam replied, standing firm. Kate couldn't resist throwing in her 2 cents. "Oh, this is just delicious. Alex, why don't you explain to your wife how deep this really goes? Or should I? You two are so dramatic. Alex, why don't you just tell her about our little club?" Kate's words cut through the room like a thunderclap. "Club?" Jessica turned to Alex, her voice trembling. Alex exhaled heavily, tension written all over his face. "It's a private group. Nothing serious, just meetings," he said, avoiding her gaze. Kate laughed, a sharp, mocking sound. "Nothing serious? Alex, are you kidding? Tell her what these meetings are about. Because if you don't, I will." Alex rubbed his face in frustration. "It's not what you think, Jessica. It's just business." "Business? Does business explain the messages from M?" Her voice rose. Kate leaned closer to Jessica. "M? Oh, Jessica, Did you really think it was just one woman? Jessica felt as though the ground beneath her had given way. Explain this, Alex. Now. Before he could respond, Nick stepped forward, drawing her attention to his phone. More photos now appeared on the screen. In one, Alex and Kate were together in settings that were anything but professional. Do you want to know the truth? Nick asked. Jessica could only nod, unable to find her voice. Your husband and Liam work together. They're both part of this club. And as you can see, this club isn't about business. She turned to Liam, searching for some denial, but he remained silent. Is this true? She asked, her voice shaking. Liam dropped his gaze, refusing to answer. At that moment, Kate handed her a folder she'd been holding and said, Everything you need to know about your perfect life is in here. Just be careful. What you read might change your future. Jessica stared at the folder, knowing it held something that could upend her life. But before she could open it, Kate stopped her with a light touch on her hand. Wait, Jessica. Before you look, let me offer you something more interesting. Jessica looked at her with mistrust, but didn't let go of the folder. What now? You already have my attention. What do you want? Kate smiled, her gaze sharpening as her voice dropped to a whisper. Not everything in life is worth a straightforward answer. Sometimes you have to play the game to truly understand who your friends are and who your enemies are. I'm offering you a chance to join. Join what? Jessica asked, leaning slightly forward. The club, of course, but not as an observer. As a participant, Kate said, her tone carrying a hint of a challenge. Jessica felt her heartbeat quicken. What does that mean? And what do I get out of it? You two are so dramatic. Alex, why don't you just tell her about our little club? Kate's words cut through the room like a thunderclap. Club. Jessica turned to Alex, her voice trembling. Alex exhaled heavily, tension written all over his face. It's a private group. Nothing serious, just meetings, he said, avoiding her gaze. Kate laughed, a sharp, mocking sound. Nothing serious? Alex, are you kidding? Tell her what these meetings are about. Because if you don't, I will. Alex rubbed his face in frustration. It's not what you think, Jessica. It's just business. Business? Does business explain the messages from M? Her voice rose. Kate leaned closer to Jessica. M? Oh, Jessica, did you really think it was just one woman? Jessica felt as though the ground beneath her had given way. Explain this, Alex. Now. Before he could respond, Nick stepped forward, drawing her attention to his phone. More photos now appeared on the screen. In one, Alex and Kate were together in settings that were anything but professional. Do you want to know the truth? Nick asked. Jessica could only nod, unable to find her voice. Your husband and Liam work together. They're both part of this club. And as you can see, this club isn't about business. She turned to Liam, searching for some denial, but he remained silent. Is this true? She asked, her voice shaking. Liam dropped his gaze, refusing to answer. At that moment, Kate handed her a folder she'd been holding and said, Everything you need to know about your perfect life is in here. Just be careful. What you read might change your future. Jessica stared at the folder, knowing it held something that could upend her life. But before she could open it, Kate stopped her with a light touch on her hand. Wait, Jessica. Before you look, let me offer you something more interesting. Jessica looked at her with mistrust, but didn't let go of the folder. What now? You already have my attention. What do you want? Kate smiled, her gaze sharpening as her voice dropped to a whisper. Not everything in life is worth a straightforward answer. Sometimes you have to play the game to truly understand who your friends are and who your enemies are. I'm offering you a chance to join. Join what? Jessica asked, leaning slightly forward. The club, of course, but not as an observer. As a participant, Kate said, her tone carrying a hint of a challenge. Jessica felt her heartbeat quicken. What does that mean? And what do I get out of it? Kate took a small sip from her glass, as though weighing her words. This means you'll become part of our world, she said smoothly. You'll gain access to everything Alex has hidden and other secrets that could change your life. But there's one condition. Jessica felt a wave of unease. And what's the condition? Kate leaned in closer, her voice silky and low. You have to prove you're willing to take risks. This isn't a game for the faint of heart. Jessica glanced at Liam, but his face was unreadable. Alex, however, looked visibly unsettled. Jessica, don't listen to her. She's just trying to pull you into this. His voice trembled with concern, but it was precisely his fear that made Jessica pause. Why was he so afraid of her agreeing? If I agree, what happens next? She asked, her voice steady. Kate smiled, as if she'd been waiting for this moment. We'll arrange your first trial. If you pass, the doors to the truth will open. And what's the trial? Jessica frowned. Kate pulled out a small envelope and placed it on the table. It's all written here. The decision is yours. Jessica opened the envelope and read the contents. Her expression shifted, a mix of shock, hesitation, and curiosity washing over her face. This is madness. Perhaps, Kate replied, her voice dripping with intrigue. But aren't you curious to find out what you're capable of? Liam, who had remained silent, suddenly spoke up. Jessica, this isn't the path you want to take. They're playing with you. And you? Aren't you playing too? She shot back, her gaze icy. Kate watched their exchange with a satisfied smirk. You have the night to decide, she said, standing up. Tomorrow, we'll meet here again. You'll either start your game or stay on the sidelines. She glanced at Alex, who only nodded nervously. When everyone had left, Jessica remained alone with Liam. Do you really think I should stay out of this? She asked, staring directly into his eyes. I think they're dangerous, he said softly but sincerely. But if you choose to go through with it, I'll be there. Jessica exhaled deeply. Her mind was flooded with doubts, but one thing was clear. This was her chance to uncover the truth. The next morning, Jessica opened the folder Kate had given her. Inside was a photograph that made her heart stop. It was of her, Alex, and Liam, together, in a picture taken long before she'd ever met Liam. Later that day, Jessica sat in the kitchen, staring at the envelope Kate had left behind. Inside was a letter detailing the trial's instructions. The more she read, the more she felt a mix of anxiety, anger, and an unsettling thrill. The task required her to meet at a specified location and perform an act that pushed beyond her moral boundaries. Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. It was Liam. His expression betrayed his concern, even though he tried to appear calm. Have you decided? He asked, sitting across from her. I can't just sit back and do nothing, she said firmly. This is my only chance to find out what's going on. Liam sighed, as if he already knew what her answer would be. If you go through with this, you're risking more than you realize. Maybe so, but I can't trust either you or Alex anymore. I need the truth, and I'm willing to take the risk. For a moment, he was silent, then extended his hand to her. If that's your decision, I'll be by your side. His words gave her strength, though she still doubted his motives. Evening fell, and Jessica arrived at the designated location, an abandoned club in the city center. The faint glow of streetlights barely illuminated the entrance, and there wasn't a soul in sight. Liam stayed in the car, watching from a distance to monitor the situation. Jessica stepped inside and found Kate waiting for her, calm and confident as always. I'm glad you came, Kate said. Your first step into our world begins here. Kate led her into a room where several others, including Nick, were gathered. They all seemed composed, as if they already knew what would happen next. Your task is simple, Kate said, pointing to a table with several papers on it. These are documents you need to sign. But there's one catch. This isn't just a formality. Signing these binds you to our club and gives you access to all the information about Alex. But beware, once you sign, you accept all the risks. What risks? Jessica asked, her heart pounding. If you decide to back out after signing, you lose everything. And by everything, I mean your money, reputation, and perhaps more, Kate said with a sly smile, as though it were a joke. Jessica knew there was no turning back. Her hands trembling slightly, she signed the papers. Excellent, Kate said. You're one of us now. Kate opened a briefcase filled with photos, letters, and documents revealing Alex's secrets. To Jessica's shock, there were also photos of Liam, with Alex, Kate, and even Nick. Now you see, Kate said with a sly grin, "that your charming neighbor isn't who he seems." Jessica looked at the photos, her anger building. "Liam, you were part of this all along?" She turned and saw Liam standing in the doorway. His face was heavy with emotion, but he didn't seem surprised. "Jessica, I can explain," he began, but she cut him off. "Don't bother. You're just another liar, like the rest of them." Kate, clearly enjoying the unfolding drama, added fuel to the fire. "Oh, but he's not just a liar. Liam is the one who brought you here." Jessica turned to Liam, her eyes blazing with fury. "Is that true?" Liam sighed and nodded. "I knew this was the only way to protect you." "Protect me? You dragged me into this." At that moment, the doors swung open, and Alex walked in. His gaze was cold and resolute. "You made a mistake, Jessica," he said, "and now you'll see what it leads to." Alex stood in the doorway, his posture confident and commanding, though his eyes burned with suppressed anger. He looked at Jessica, who held the documents and photos that had become her passport into a world of lies and betrayal. "You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into, Jessica," Alex said, stepping closer. Kate watched the scene unfold like a play, leaning back in her chair with a smug smile. "Alex, it seems your wife has more courage than you gave her credit for." "Shut up, Kate," Alex snapped. Jessica didn't back down. Her hands no longer trembled, and she held Alex's gaze. "I want to know everything. Who is Kate? Why is Liam here? And most importantly, what is this club?" Alex exhaled, as if weighing his next words carefully. "It's more than just a club," he finally said. "It's a lifestyle. A community of people who value freedom in their relationships." Jessica felt her heart tighten. "Freedom? You call this freedom? Lying to me every single day?" Alex took a step forward, but Kate interrupted him. "Oh, don't be so dramatic, Alex. You said she needed to know. Well, now she knows." Jessica turned sharply to Kate, her voice cutting like steel. "And what do you get out of this? What's your role in all of this? And you? Are you his mistress?" Kate laughed, her laughter cold and defiant. "Not exactly. I'm a part of his life you never knew existed." "And what part is that?" Jessica asked, feeling her patience wearing thin. Kate leaned closer, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "We're all in this together. Alex and I, Liam, even Nick. We've created a system that lets us live without limitations." "You mean to say, this is an open relationship?" Jessica guessed. Alex nodded. "Yes, but it's more than just that. It's a system built on trust and rules." Jessica felt her world crumbling around her. "And how does lying to me fit into your rules? Was that part of it too?" Alex took another step forward. "I didn't want to lose you. I knew you wouldn't understand." Kate interjected again. "Oh, but she does understand now, doesn't she?" "Jessica, you can see that you could have been a part of this." "A part of what? Lies? Betrayal?" Jessica shot back. Kate smiled slyly and raised her hand, pointing toward Liam. "Isn't that a betrayal too? Or do you think your dear neighbor is here by chance?" Jessica turned to Liam, her eyes filled with distrust. "What does she mean?" Liam sighed, finally breaking his silence. "I worked with Alex, Jessica. It's true. I knew about the club, but I never imagined you'd become a part of this." "You were part of his lies?" she asked, her voice icy. "At first, yes. But then, I realized it wasn't just a game for me." "What does that mean?" Her voice trembled. "It means that He paused, struggling with his words, before continuing, "I fell in love with you." Kate laughed again, her tone more sinister this time. "How romantic. Who would have thought our Liam was capable of such feelings?" Jessica's emotions spiraled into chaos. Her husband had betrayed her not just with other women, but by creating an entire web of lies. Her neighbor, whom she had trusted, was also a part of it, even as he claimed to love her. Alex stepped forward one last time, his tone cold and resolute. "Jessica, you need to make a choice. Stay with me and become a part of this world. Or leave. But if you leave, you'll lose everything you have." Jessica stood in the middle of the room, surrounded by people who had shattered her illusions of love and trust. In front of her stood Alex, the man she had once loved but could no longer bear to look at. Beside her was Liam, whose loyalty and confession of love felt hollow in light of his role in this club. And then there was Kate, the face of all the lies, who seemed to revel in Jessica's pain. The weight of their words pressed on her, but for the first time, Jessica realized the power of her own choice. She didn't need Alex's freedom, Liam's conflicted loyalty, or Kate's manipulative games. Jessica raised her head, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. "I've already made my choice," she said, stepping past Alex and Kate. "And it's not any of you." As she walked out of the room, leaving the chaos behind, she knew the road ahead would be uncertain, but it would be hers. "You don't have to decide right now, Jessica," Kate said with a faint smile. "But if you stay, you'll gain more than just answers. You'll gain power." Jessica inhaled deeply, summoning her strength for what she knew would be her final step. Power? You think it's power to deceive people and destroy their lives? "It's not deception," Alex interjected. "It's living without limits. A world where everyone plays by their own rules." "You made me believe our rules were different," Jessica replied sharply, her voice ringing with conviction. "But you were wrong. I won't be part of your game." Liam stepped closer, his face filled with emotion. "Jessica, I know I've hurt you, but my feelings for you are real. Give me a chance to prove it." "A chance?" Her voice cracked. "You want a chance after pulling me into this?" She looked at him, then at Alex. Her decision was clear. "I'm leaving all of you. You deserve each other." Jessica turned away, but Kate stopped her with one last attempt. "If you walk out of this room, your life will never be the same." "It already isn't," Jessica said, and without looking back, she left. Jessica stood on the doorstep of her home, breathing in the cold night air. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. She pulled it out and read the message. "We're not done, Jessica. You're already part of the game." She lifted her head, staring into the darkness. Her face was resolute, her eyes steady. What would you do in Jessica's place? Would you try to destroy their game, or leave it behind forever?